Hello, and welcome back to the Progress Report. I am Sarah B. Nelson, and I'm your host for today. So today we're going to unpack why private cloud is quickly becoming such an important part of how companies use AI. So with so many companies rethinking their cloud setups, especially amid this frenzy of AI, lots of questions around data privacy, security, cost, of course, and more. Private cloud is actually starting to have a lot of momentum again. So today I've invited my guests to explore why more and more companies are turning to private cloud as a key foundation for how they run AI. So joining me is Casey Funk, who represents Dell Technologies as the Senior Director of Global Specialty Sales and Global Alliances, along with Noel Bravo, who's Kyndryl's Vice President of Cloud Practice here at Kyndryl. So there's a lot to cover here. Casey and Noel, welcome to the Progress Report.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Sarah.
So we're going to just dive right into it. I'm curious, and this is a question for actually either one of you to start, but I'm curious what defines the next generation of private cloud. And part of that question is, how do priorities differ across stakeholders like developers, CIOs, CISOs?
We've said for a number of years that cloud is not a place or a destination. That cloud truly is an operating model, and that it could be deployed anywhere. It provides real value to the end user, including self-service, an API-driven, metered, automated environment that at the end of the day delivers on-demand resources that provide a fast time to value. And there was a time that the hyperscalers, the public clouds, were really the only provider of that type of capability, but that's really changed. We've found now that a well-run private cloud, that operating model within the confines of a customer partner's firewall, is extremely advantageous. And from a priority perspective, it does differ across stakeholders, right? The developers, the consumers, they just want fast time to value. They want fast time to resources. And what we're seeing is that we can deliver a 2-5 times increase in that access to resources to drive value and innovation.
I have more and more conversations around private cloud than ever. And it makes me, I see that the moment is now. And the moment is now because there are multiple factors that are making the customers to take the decision now. It's a question of taking more control. The reality is that the customers cannot automate more. They cannot advance more, thinking on the technical depth that actually they have, right? And the customer really need to accelerate the time to market, right? The competitiveness, with the cloud native or digital companies, digital native companies, is really hard. So in order to be competitive, they have to resolve this technical debt. They have to reduce the risk. They have to be more effective. And customers today, the reality is that they have a set of distributed systems, right? They have compute, they have storage, they have network with a virtualization layer. This is not a truly private cloud. This is not a truly private cloud. And the customers are demanding really to have this cloud experience that they control with the control of the private cloud. So really, I think private cloud is back and is one of the most important decisions that the customers are taking, not just from a technical perspective, from a business perspective. Now we have to bring this experience into the private cloud as well. So I think there's a combination, but it means for everybody you ask for what a next-gen private cloud means is to bring the public cloud experience into the on-premise world.
Okay, so that's really good. That's some really good context. And I feel like we wouldn't be having a podcast right now if we didn't mention the word AI. I'm curious how this sort of, as the AI systems are getting closer to operations, where are private or hybrid cloud environments becoming more essential?
I think that this concept of AI evolution and needing to move closer to core operations is extremely real. Whereas a year ago, 18 months ago, we found that a myriad of our customers were deploying AI solutions for proof of concept activities and testing activities in the public cloud. What we're now seeing is that the move to training and inferencing needs to happen near the data and in a highly sensitive and governed, regulated way. At the end of the day, even with the massive growth of hyperscalers over the last 10 years, 80% of the world's data still sits on-prem. And we've clearly recognized that we have to bring the AI to where the data lives. We found that, as much as 70% of AI use cases simply can't run in the public cloud alone. So for real-time, mission-critical AI, applications like fraud or clinical applications, certainly applications at the edge like manufacturing or networking, that we recognize that an on-prem or edge cloud environment to support those AI workloads is absolutely critical. So we don't believe it's a single solution for every workload, right? We can POC, we can fine tune in public, but when it comes to training and inferencing, we've got to be near the data, i.e. in the customer's data center, and we can then take that out and scale that to the edge as necessary.
If you mix, the situation around cybersecurity concerns, if you mix this with the sovereign concerns, where the data is, you see that we are seeing more and more new ways of use AI for cybersecurity as well as for the business. So what we see in reality is that there is a combination of how the industries are using AI, not just for business purpose, they're using it for cybersecurity, and also they're using for IT, because AI enables the companies to be much more effective to reduce the human error, as well as to cover what I used to say the skills gap. Because when you use AI, so there are many types of AI, right? So, but when you start to use AI, and I will give you an example, we have some cases where we have a customer that needs to launch a new project, a new application, right? And this is the business or the developers, they can have all the skills. And now with AI, they don't need, because we can apply natural language, for example, and you have the developer asking directly to the system with natural language. For example, I have a project with 5,000 users, and I need to have this level of availability, and I need to have this type of response from the system. There is no technical language there, right? This is business language, but AI can help to the business, to the developer, to translate the business need into something that is technical, tangible. On the past, we used to work with infrastructure as code, and you need to translate the complexity of the technology to the developer of the business. But now we have a fantastic layer in the middle that helps to cover this gap. So it's not just we are using AI with the customer from a business perspective, also from cybersecurity, but also to help us as IT companies, as a services company, as a consulting companies, to support the customers to cover the gaps on their business projects.
I think you're talking about the translation, like a translation layer essentially between technical and infrastructure and what the business needs, so that they can better make more informed decisions?
Exactly.
What we're seeing, similar to what he had described, is this scaling from pilots to production. And the questions change from can we do it to is it compliant? Is it governable? Is it affordable at scale? And can we build an operating model around it?
It's interesting too, because I think both of you have touched on this, the humans and their relationship to all this technology. So things like oversight, decision-making, which we talked a little bit about there, Noel. But I'm also curious about, as you're developing an infrastructure, and the choice of infrastructure that you're creating, what is the role of that in terms of building trust? We know that people have an enormous amount of problems with trust with AI and systems like that. So I'm curious about that.
The way that the data is accessed on the data center or on the cloud has changed, right? we used to have applications that there was a human request to the applications to access to data to do something. Now the pattern has changed, right? We used to have, for example, we used to call cold data on hot data on data centers. Today, now everything is hot because the data is accessed continuously. When we're saying that the private cloud imply a new way to consume and use the technology, a new way of operate, that it has the AI embedded, it implies a cultural change, right? Because we're changing dramatically the way we work with the technology, the way we operate with the technology, and the way that the humans are consuming the technology. And this implies a big organizational change, and a big organizational change requires a cultural change, because everything, the roles, the way we are operating the systems, the way we are learning how to operate is changing, right? The other day I saw an article that the hyperscalers, for example, they are launching more than 5,000 new applications and solutions per year. So the human knowledge, we cannot simply take all the innovation that is coming, right? So we need to filter, and we need help the customers to understand and apply the technology and the applications that matter for the business, right? My perspective is we will continue being in the middle. The human will be in the loop, right? Either from the use of AI, either from the control of or on the governance of the data, and also to support the role, I would say, to take the right decisions.
In my 30 years in industry, we've never seen a state of change, a state of innovation, a state of complexity that we've seen over the past 12 months. And it's only going to get more complex as we roll further into this year and beyond. We're shifting from sort of generic AI, chatbots, and sort of data access and response to agentic agents, which serve autonomously and act autonomously. And the value is allowing that agentic agent to go and run a workload and respond back. But it requires human oversight, right? In the future, a developer or a development leader is going to manage a number of humans and a number of agentic agents. And that leader is going to have to act under significant enterprise control with full instrumentation, audit capabilities, explainability, rather than just relying on a black box where we trust that those autonomous agents are actually doing what we've asked them to think they are. So the human has to be in the loop by design. 100% of the decisions have to require, oversight and audit capabilities. We have to decide what require human approval in serial versus which can be allowed to run truly autonomously. And we have to look at, the resulting incident rates and then how we improve those over time with the ability to override or roll back very seamlessly. So there's a huge governance construct around that. And the human, where some folks feel like the value deprecates over time, we believe that the human becomes even more important in this world of agentic AI, and the opportunity is great.
I mean, I imagine, so you've got this rate of change that's happening really fast, but these investments in cloud and in our longer term investments, how are you, as you work with this, as these changes are happening, how are you adapting these systems?
Technology is being more and more efficient every day, right? We know that. And we know that in every time that we are modernizing an infrastructure from a customer, like it could be storage, could be compute, we use just half of the space in the data center that we used before. We just use a half of the electricity and the power that we used before. So, of course, we're going to use more and more technology, but technology is becoming more efficient, right? And it helped as well the sustainability regulations, right? And And all the companies have an objective to be more and more sustainable, right? And we cannot think that resources are unlimited. So as well as we have data governance, as well as we have AI governance, we must have a sustainability control of how we're consuming the technology. And it doesn't apply from an infrastructure perspective. It starts from the business.
We're at this moment where we have to drive value from the existing infrastructure to support traditional workloads. And we have to support the growth of AI and these new requirements that are coming to the infrastructure teams. And I think, Noel, you would attest to this. IT budgets are not growing dramatically. So it's incumbent upon us to drive an infrastructure rationalization and consolidation strategy to drive cost out of the infrastructure sitting in the data center so that we can fuel and enable investments in these innovative AI-led projects. So to Noel's point, we see a huge opportunity for consolidation. For example, by moving to current gen compute from one or two gens back, we're seeing a 5 to 7 to 1 consolidation opportunity, for example, driving significant infrastructure consolidation from a footprint point of view, power, space, and cooling, but also from a core reduction, which results in lower software licensing costs and much less complexity. We're seeing this on the data storage side, leveraging things like next-gen data reduction, where we can look at an infrastructure set and reduce that by as much as 5 times, right? Creating this efficiency that then will, again, fuel these next-gen innovative work streams.
So I think you've both done a really good job of starting to point into this, like, what does the future look like? And so I think about, what does progress look like? So if you look ahead, how do you see private cloud shaping the next phase of enterprise systems? Again, in the context of AI becoming more autonomous and more integrated into core operations.
If I think of the progress, I think the future is today, right? So when we discuss with the customers is how the next gen private cloud will look like, is, as we said at the beginning, the first thing they come to the head is, I want to have this public experience. But there are many layers that we need to construct before we arrive to that thing. First thing is the private cloud of the future is a composition of intelligent infrastructures, right? Intelligent infrastructure means that the obsolescence, is auto-remediated. So we used to say that we are building a private cloud that operates itself. And this is, where I see the progress. A private cloud that respond automatically to the risks and to the threats from cybersecurity, that help the users to build their projects and the applications, not having a deep technical knowledge, but delivering the right workarounds and resolving the knowledge gaps. And I see a private cloud, and we're defining a private cloud that have the right scalability, but as well as it scales, it decreases when necessary, right? Because we know that enterprises today are growing, but tomorrow we know. So we need to ensure that we provide a solution that is able to respond to the business demand, but also is able to decrease the capacity when needed. So we need to apply this flexibility to the customers. We see a private cloud that is multi-purpose. So the customer can run AI workloads, they can run VMs, or they can run containers, right? So the logic of what is the right place for my new application becomes with the platform engineering concepts. So we see more and more customers that, instead of not just modernize their existing infrastructure, they're taking a strategic decision that is to build a next-gen private cloud of the future, right, as a greenfield scenario, because it also is a leveler for them to afford a much more deeper transformation on the way they operate, and also, as we said before, via a cultural transformation for the whole company. Because this is what technology delivered to customer is, a new ways to create applications, and new ways to generate new products for the business. It's a new way to work. And this next year private cloud, what I see as a progress is a leveler for operational and a cultural transformation.
It can be very overwhelming. Like, how do I get started and what is the end state that I'm looking towards? We believe that creating this sort of well-run landing zone, this environment that becomes the greenfield growth engine, is extremely beneficial in that as a application environment is ripe for transformation, or as it's approaching its expiration date, we can transform that application environment to this well-run private cloud common infrastructure, and then continue that move of these workloads over to this environment and grow it seamlessly over time, either in a classic CapEx model, or oftentimes what our customers love is an on-demand OpEx model that scales in a pay-per-use type utility basis. So yes, very common conversation that we're having, and very real from a customer challenge perspective.
Well, KC, Noel, this has been a really interesting conversation. Lots of challenges, but also a lot of really interesting future developments as well. So I just want to thank you both for joining us.
You're very welcome. Look, it's been great speaking about the rapid development of private cloud and this incredible appetite for AI solutions across the enterprise.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Progress Report, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on any platform where you usually find your podcasts.